everyone, and welcome to what I'm sure will be the first of very many Q&As about Norway. I've decided that I would let you all ask me all the questions that you wanted to have answered, and I will do my very best to answer them in the best possible way. Woohoo! I would of course also like to put a tiny little disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I am merely Norwegian, and that's why I'm answering these questions. I'm not an expert in any of these topics that might come up today, so just keep that in mind when you're watching this video. Now let's start at Twitter for the first questions. Is Norway a bike-friendly country? Well, yes and no. I mean, there are plenty of places where there are walking and cycling paths. If it's particularly friendly in the bigger cities, I would say no. I know that you have to cycle in the road if you're gonna cycle anywhere in Oslo, for example, but I'm sure that it's more bike friendly than a lot of places, like say, for example, New York or LA. Can you rent bikes on the street? You used to be able to get bikes on the streets, kind of like bike racks, like the Boris bikes in London, where you check them out and then you check them in when you're done. Usually there's not a lot of bike shops and rental places on the streets other than those specific things though. Denmark is really the bike country of the Scandinavian countries. Is a car necessary to get around? Well, that also really depends on where you live. If you live in one of the smaller places, the buses are very likely to run very seldom, probably like one every hour or one every 2 hours, and you would struggle to get around without a car. In the bigger cities, you would definitely not need a car. I have never owned a car in my life. I would just think it would be an inconvenience to own a car if you lived in Oslo, especially if you lived in the centre of Oslo where there's no particular parking spots. I would say the Norwegian public transportation is very well developed, and there's trains and boats and buses and trams and undergrounds and all kinds of things that you can take in the different places. What is the most typical food in Norway? That is a really hard question. Completely depends on if you mean traditional food or if you mean most commonly eaten food. I mean, I've talked about this in a video before, but we have this thing called Grandiosa, which is frozen pizzas, and they sell a massive amount of those frozen pizzas every year. Otherwise, I'd say the Norwegian culture has really embraced foreign food, and things like sushi and tapas and Italian food and Thai and all kinds of Asian food really has been really well integrated into the takeout options that you can get in different places. It also, of course, depends on where you live. I'm going to say that so many times through this video. It depends on where you live. Now let's move on to Facebook for some other questions. Vera asks, is it even possible to be a vegetarian in Norway? It's a good question. I would say that it's quite a struggle to be a vegetarian anywhere. I'm not sure that it's particularly difficult to be a vegetarian in Norway compared to other places. I know that a lot of our junk food and our snacks revolve around animal products, and it's kind of hard to steer away from it, especially if you're a vegan. Maybe not if you're a vegetarian and you eat things like milk and egg and cheese. You just have to make sacrifices like you usually have to do anyways when you're a vegetarian, so good luck with that. Minan asks, how does the pension system work in Norway? I heard that the state pension fund of Norway is very generous, right? Yeah, I'm 28, so I don't know a lot about pensions, but I will do you a solid and I will leave some links in the description below that describes the pension system in Norway better than I can do verbally to you over this video. Potara asks, Norwegian people habits, are they social or not? I've talked about this already once in one of my other videos, that Norwegians are quite social people, but not necessarily with people they don't already know. As soon as it's a setting where you know people, if you're drinking, if you're having a party, if you get together with friends, people are very social. I kind of think that it stems a little bit back to when you used to be very isolated in farms, very far spread out in through the country. Stefan asks, is there a big difference between the Scandinavian countries? Maybe. Yes, of course there is. Yes, I mean, but so many people tend to lump Scandinavia together. There are some significant differences. They might not be visible to the naked eye to people who haven't spent a lot of time in the different countries. But me, myself, having lived in Norway and Denmark and having worked a lot with Swedes, as I currently do, I definitely see there are huge differences. Personally, I see that Swedes have an incredible work ethic. And also Swedes are known for taking the horrible and quite low jobs that Norwegians and Danes don't want to do and that are quite low paying, just to save up money. So that's one thing that's very particular for Sweden. I'd say another thing that's quite particular for Denmark is the drinking culture. It's quite well known that Danes get to start drinking alcohol when they're 16, so the drinking starts a lot sooner than 16 very often in many places, and it's quite highly ingrained. How is the job market, especially pertinent to people who are looking to relocate to Norway? I mean, it's something that I have had experience with. Both me and my dad have moved to separate countries where we have not been born and tried to get jobs. It's rough because you need to have certain skills to fit certain jobs. I mean, you bring a certain something to a job if you can speak the same language as your co-workers. Not saying that it's necessary to speak Norwegian to work in Norway, but you might find that your options are very much narrowed down if you don't speak Norwegian. Right, that was it for this time, guys. I hope that I've answered as many of your questions as possible, and if you do have any more questions for next time, for next Q&A, whenever that will be, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below and I will answer them in video form or in writing. And if you don't already, you can feel free to follow me on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. All of the links are in the description below. I've also added my Goodreads profile there as well because I am doing the 20 books in 2015 challenge, and if you are a fan of books or reading or anything like that, feel free to follow me there as well and send me suggestions for good books because I'm running out. Slowly but surely I'm running out and I need more books that I can, devour. Right guys, I hope you have a brilliant weekend and I will see you all soon. Bye!